talking about Piers Morgan and the death of the mainstream media. And we're not just saying this, they are dying worldwide. And alternative media, left, right, center, libertarian, doesn't matter, independent is becoming the new dominant. So how is the system going to strike back? I wanted to call Max Kaiser and just see if we were able to snag him, and we were. He's a syndicated host himself and on RT, and, of course, a former top stockbroker. No stranger to this transmission. I know you're a big Piers Morgan admirer, Max. What is your take on his fall?
Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, thanks a lot, Alex. Now you're sending him back here to Britain, where he was already chased out of Britain for an insider trading scandal, for a phone hacking scandal. He went to America. He was on CNN. The only reason he was lasting this long was the interview he did with you. Suddenly his ratings went up, and then he didn't do an interview with you anymore. His ratings crashed, and now you're sending him back here to the UK, and everyone in the UK is crying because this idiot is coming back here where everyone hated him to begin with.
You know, I'm surprised by how many people hate Piers Morgan in England in the polls I've seen. He is a wildly unpopular person everywhere. Why do you think they gave him a show? Because the establishment people like phony hacks like him?
Well, CNN, the whole mainstream media, is really, his ratings are unbelievably low. The CNN's ratings are very, very low. But with Piers Morgan, you know, he faces some follow-up questioning in Operation Weeding. And Operation Weeding is related to the phone hacking scandal, and it has broadened from News of the World, which is Rupert Murdoch's newspaper, to the Sunday Mirror and the Daily Mirror, where Piers Morgan was the editor. And of course, when you were last in the UK, you interviewed my wife, Stacey Herbert, who told you about Piers Morgan's involvement in the phone hacking scandal, and she had direct evidence of that such, and she was asked by UK police to give some evidence. And that never went away. You've got the video that you made here while you were in the UK last time.
That's right, we put it on YouTube. Yeah,
so now when he comes back, he was just questioned again in December of 2013. He has to face additional questions as this inquiry gets deeper. So he's got nowhere to hide. So Piers Morgan involved in the phone hacking scandal, which of course was the tabloids, of which he was a part of, spying on victims of the 7/7 bus bombing. They were spying on the murdered schoolgirl's family, Millie Dowler. So he's really got blood on his hands. He's been discredited. He's been caught phone hacking, breaking the law. So he comes back here to the UK to face the music.
Oh, that's right. And the video is called Stacey Herbert, Victim of Piers Morgan. It's up on Infowars.com, a two-part video, in-depth interview with you and Stacey Herbert. And hopefully soon she'll come on and talk about this as soon as the indictments come down. I mean, that's the word, is that Lord Morgan is going to be indicted soon.
Well, the inquiry continues. He's got dirt on his hands with this situation. His associate, a woman by the name of Tina Weaver, who was the editor of the Sunday Mirror, she's implicated in this. I don't want to say too much because I'm not anxious to participate.
That's right.
Myself.
He might be innocent. This is all alleged. Piers Morgan is a wonderful person.
Right, but so this is all coming down, and it's going to be interesting to see because, of course, as I mentioned, he was also running away from an insider trading scandal when he was editor of his tabloid while he was here. So he's just nobody likes this guy because he's such a slimeball.
What does this say though about the rating slide across the board in state-run media like CNN?
It's hard to imagine why they picked Piers Morgan to begin with, other than there's just tremendous cooperation now in propaganda in the UK and the US. I want to point out that just this past week, Tony Blair admitted in a leak that to Rebecca Brooks, who was also part of the phone hacking scandal, he apparently told her in email that to make the whole situation go away, they should create a Hutton-like inquiry to whitewash the phone hacking scandal. The Hutton inquiry, of course, whitewashed Tony Blair's participation in the Iraq war genocide and war crimes.
globalist social engineers are not just targeting us with propaganda. They are manipulating our genetics. We are being targeted at every level by estrogen mimickers that lower our testosterone and other hormones and natural compounds that the body needs. After consulting top doctors, nutritionists, pharmacists, and others, we have developed what I believe is the ultimate non-GMO organic super male vitality formula sourced from powerful organic herbs and then concentrated for maximum potency. Super male vitality was developed to activate your body's own natural processes instead of using synthetic chemicals. Super male vitality by InfoWars Life is so powerful that I only take half the recommended dose. For a limited time, we are offering 15% off Super Male Vitality at InfoWarsLife.com to introduce you to this powerful supplement. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today to secure your Super Male Vitality. InfoWarsLife.com. Not just Piers Morgan, just another sign that the dinosaurs of the state-run media are collapsing. But they're still delusional as ever. They just double down on their anti-gun, anti-family, anti-liberty, pro-war, pro-police state rhetoric. Here's some of the headlines up on Infowars.com. Obama seizes control of late-night TV. Supreme Court refuses to hear Second Amendment case. More news breaking. Obama is Firearms Salesman of the Year. With some of the key graphs, Piers Morgan admits gun control advocacy led to show being axed. Democracy murdered by protests. Ukraine falls to intrigue and violence. Now they're talking about other countries falling along Russia's border. Ron Paul says, leave Ukraine alone. The West should stay out of it. I agree. Ukraine puts out a warrant for the president. That is just some of the news up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. If you look at DrudgeReport.com, it's Putin. The Winter Games are over. And continuing, the games are over. Will Putin take the gloves off? For more than 2 weeks while Russia hosted the Winter Olympics, President Vladimir Putin did his best to show the world that he and his country have a soft side. Now that the games are over, Western governments are concerned the smile will disappear and the gloves will come off. That's why they launched the attack during it, the Western Soros attack during it against Ukraine. In Russia, tug of war with Europe over the fate of Ukraine. The circus artists, dancers, and flag bearers hardly had time to leave the stadium after the closing ceremony before Russia announced it had recalled its ambassador from Ukraine from consulates in Moscow. Russian state television said they don't accept the new government as legitimate. And Western governments are saying, do not launch your military into the country. You've got the eastern area that's mainly Russian citizens. You've got the West that was more allied with Germany in World War II. And I understand they have a beef with Russia, but they should know that the euro will suck them dry. And the euro are the ones that spent $5 billion with the State Department fomenting this. And so I'm sure from different perspectives, there's different reasons for this. The point is the detonator, the initiator on all this is the West. Now, I don't know Max Kaiser's take on this, but I know he's lived all over Europe and covered it. So we'll get his take on it. But, you know, I mean, I'm for the Arab Spring, except it got hijacked and in some cases stirred up by the West. What is your view, Max, of what's happening right now in the Ukraine?
Well, you know, Russia, Iran, and China, we've talked about this before. They have a mutual defense pact, I guess you could call it, or it's the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement. And, you know, China, Russia, and Iran share something very interesting in that they don't have central banks that are controlled by the Fed or the IMF or the World Bank. So there's enormous pressure by the central banks of the West to seize these operations of Iran, Russia, and China, because that's a threat to the central bankers. And the central bankers in the West are what feed those enormous bonuses on Wall Street by printing up those trillions of dollars of the quantitative easing. But because Iran, China, and Russia have economies that, well, in the case of Russia, of course, they have huge natural resources, and they don't really need to have a financialized Ponzi scheme like you have on Wall Street. So they don't really need to be part of the confederation of corrupt central banks, whether it's the ECB, the Bank of England, Bank of Japan, the Federal Reserve Bank. So that's where the tension is. And the situation in Ukraine, obviously, it's another hit piece by, you had John McCain down there in the CIA looking to stir trouble. They're looking to seize any assets they can and fund some local CIA-sponsored folks and game on. The same thing we've seen in Central America, South America, North Africa. This is the global insurrection against banker occupation. As we've been talking about on your show for years, it's just been getting larger and more violent as the central bankers want to protect their monopoly in printing fiat nonsense and giving themselves huge bonuses and letting everyone else starve. What's interesting is that in the Ukraine, on the economics front, the price of food has been going up. We've talked on your show before, Alex, about when the price of food as a percentage of disposable income gets to around 40%, there's usually some kind of violent revolution. We saw it in the Arab Spring. We see it now in Ukraine. We see it in historically going back to the French Revolution. So that's another byproduct of this money printing, is that the poor people who are exposed face-to-face with rising food costs as a percentage of disposable income, when it gets to a certain level, they just go into the streets because they've got nothing to lose.
Exactly, Max, but that's the problem. They know when these countries are going to blow up, so the West then triggers its revolution to make sure a real revolution doesn't happen. And so instead of the Russian allied government that's obviously got problems, they're now going to go with the EU, who's already saying they're going to put the Ukraine under debt. I mean, this is...
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So that I'm saying that's what you have at work here. And just, going back to the media collapse in America for a second and the Piers Morgan story, I just wanted to also bring to your attention the comments of Alec Baldwin, who's a friend of mine for 30 years, who just came out today and slammed MSNBC and Huffington Post, the so-called liberal left media in America, as a sham. He called Rachel Maddow basically two-faced. So this is a major admission by somebody who's a huge media presence in the U.S.
Yeah, the headline is "Goodbye to Public Life."
Yeah, well, if you read the details, he's saying that MSNBC is a sham, Rachel Maddow is two-faced, Huffington Post is a sham. They're all basically working for these slime balls at the center of the media cartel. What about the story last week, Alex, of Comcast extorting from Netflix a fee? You remember net neutrality? We didn't want anyone like a Comcast to come in and turn the internet into HBO or turn it into pay-per-view. We wanted it to be end-to-end and open and free. Now, of course, Comcast has had their way. Netflix is going to have to raise their prices. If your show, because it's on the internet, you're going to have to pay extortion money to your provider of internet services, or suddenly people trying to get Prison Planet and AlexJones.com, it's going to be slow. They'll put in the slow.
Exactly, and people are already paying for their download via their internet service. These companies claiming they need to charge somebody for access to their grid is total fraud. And so they're coming after net neutrality. They're coming internet taxes.
Yeah, they've done it instead. Aaron Swartz died for the sins of the corpocracy. But you're coming to Oxford University, Alex. We're doing an interview with you when you're in London. You're going to be taking a victory lap in the United Kingdom. You were here a few months ago. You were on television. You busted the ratings charts of all these shows that never had ratings like with you or on the show ever in their history on the BBC. Now Piers Morgan is dead. The Wicked Witch is dead. You're coming back here for a victory lap, much-deserved victory lap in the UK. We want to document it. We want to be there.
Yeah, I'm flattered that Oxford has me speaking at their main end-of-winter keynote to the faculty and private members of Oxford Hall there.
They didn't invite Piers Morgan. They didn't invite a slime bucket like Piers Morgan because he's...
No, but let me ask you, why do you think the faculty is inviting me to come address them? That's bizarre.
Because you're a media maven. I mean, you've redefined public media in the world.
That's what they said in their letter. They said I'm changing the media, the way the media works. That's what they want me to speak on.
Absolutely. I mean, you've been an inspiration to MaxKaiser.com. You've been an inspiration to our work on television. You've been, people like Luke Rudkowski, who's one of the greatest journalists in the world right now. Where do you think he came from? He came out of the Alex Jones world. So now you're taking a much-deserved victory lap, and I think there's going to be, be on my show.
I do like England. I got to tell you, I really love England. That's why I said I'd come back, because I love the Salisbury Plain. I was going to live somewhere. Gosh, that's beautiful. Well, listen, Max, we'll talk to you for a full hour soon if you can do it on everything in the world. Thank you so much for popping in.
And my pleasure, Alex. Bye-bye.
There goes Max Kaiser. Now, the guy from Pakistan hung up. He's only been on hold 20 minutes, bro, and I know if he can get back in, I want Muhammad on because I want to get his take internationally on dinosaur media collapsing. But I want to quantify this. Piers Morgan 340, 350,000 viewers a night on average. This show, 3 million. Terrestrially, 3 million on AM and FM stations. But people are like, oh, that's AM and FM. It's people. They're listening. InfoWars, million visitors a day, sometimes more. We're not putting on airs. We're not on these big power trips. When we have audiences, how many times bigger is that? That's an audience like 6, 7, 8 times bigger than Piers Morgan's. I mean, he's pathetic. So he never collapsed. He never exploded, folks. It's an illusion. It's mind control. We're going to go to your calls. Phil, Lisa, Eric, Brian, Mike here in just one moment.
You are watching the best of the Alex Jones Show. Weekdays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. Watch live at Infowars.com/show or become a member of InfoWarsNews.com and help us take resistance to the next level.